It was late evening on the mining colony of Varine 4, a dusty world where the air always smelled of metal and ash. Humans had built shining silver domes here, trying to survive the harsh alien winds. Every night, when the lights dimmed and the wind began to howl, a young man named Eli Ward closed his food stall and walked home. He always left one small portion of food on the counter, a habit that no one understood. But Eli knew something strange was happening. For the last 6 nights, someone had been stealing food from his stall. It wasn't much, just a few pieces of bread, a slice of synth meat, or a sealed water bottle. The thief never broke anything or left a mess. It was as if someone quietly appeared, took the food, and vanished like smoke. Most traders cursed thieves. Eli didn't. Something about the theft felt careful, almost desperate. Whoever it was, they weren't greedy. They were hungry. That night, as violet lightning cracked across the clouds, Eli decided to wait. He turned off the lights in his shop and hid behind the storage crates, watching through a small gap. The colony streets were quiet except for the hum of generators. He waited for an hour, 2. Then, he heard it. A soft sound. Bare feet against the metal floor. A small shadow crept out from the corner, moving quickly like it feared every second. It was a girl no older than 16. Her skin had a faint silver glow under the moonlight, and her hair shimmered like wet glass. Eli's heart stopped. She wasn't human. An alien. Her eyes were large and dark, reflecting the neon lights from far away. She moved silently, reaching for the leftover food. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Eli could see her ribs through her thin clothes. She was starving. He could have shouted. He could have called security. But instead he whispered softly, "Hey, wait." The girl froze. Her eyes widened, and for a second she looked like a cornered animal ready to run. Eli slowly raised his hands. "It's okay," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't speak. Instead, she backed away, clutching the food close to her chest. "You've been taking my food, haven't you?" Eli said gently. "Every night." The girl's lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Then, without warning, she turned and ran. Eli followed, not out of anger, but curiosity. The girl sprinted down the narrow alleyways of the colony until she reached the edge, where the human lights faded into the wastelands. She disappeared into the dark fog that humans rarely entered. Eli stopped at the boundary gate, breathing hard. The wastelands were full of broken machines and radiation storms. No human lived there, but he saw the faint silver glow moving deeper into the fog. She was going back to something, or someone. The next morning, Eli couldn't get her image out of his mind. He spent the whole day distracted, handing out food to customers but thinking about that alien girl with shaking hands and scared eyes. Who was she? Why was she here? And what kind of danger was she living in beyond the colony's walls? That night he did something reckless. He packed a small food box, wrapped it carefully, and left it outside the shop with a note written in simple words. "For you. You don't need to steal." Then he hid again, waiting. Hours passed before she came. She looked around nervously, picked up the box, and froze when she saw the note. Her eyes softened for a moment. Then she took the food and disappeared again. Eli smiled. For some reason, that tiny act made the cold night feel warmer. But when he returned to his room, his communicator buzzed. A voice from the colony's security station spoke urgently. "Attention, all citizens. There have been sightings of unauthorized alien movement near the outer sectors. If you see any alien life forms, report immediately. They are dangerous." Eli's heart sank. The girl was being hunted. He looked out the window toward the wastelands where faint lightning glowed. Somewhere out there, the alien girl was hiding, alone, hungry, and scared. He made a quiet promise to himself. He would find her, and this time he wouldn't let her run away. The next night, the wind on Varine 4 howled louder than usual. The storm clouds above the mining colony flashed with violet light, making the ground tremble. But Eli Ward didn't care. He had one thing in his mind, the alien girl. He packed another food box, this time with more water and protein bars. Then, against every rule of the colony, he stepped beyond the security gates. No one went out there at night. The wastelands were deadly. Old mining grounds filled with toxic fog, sharp rocks, and machines long abandoned after the Great Collapse. But Eli followed the faint trail of small footprints on the dusty ground. The silver moonlight reflected off them, guiding him like a quiet whisper. He walked for nearly an hour before he heard something, soft breathing, mixed with a faint cough. He crouched low behind a broken transport pod. And there she was, the same alien girl. But this time he wasn't the only one there. Beside her lay a woman, weak and pale, wrapped in torn cloth. Her body shimmered faintly like the girl's, same glowing skin, same silver eyes. She looked sick, her breathing shallow and rough. The girl dipped a cloth into a small bottle of water and touched it to the woman's forehead. Then she whispered something in a soft alien language. Eli watched silently, his heart twisting. He finally understood. The girl wasn't stealing food for herself. She was stealing it for her sick mother. He stepped out slowly, holding the food box in his hands. "Hey," he said quietly. "You shouldn't be here in this storm." The girl gasped and turned around, fear flashing across her face. "You followed me?" she said, her voice trembling. It was the first time Eli had heard her speak. Her accent was soft, her words slightly broken like she had learned human language on her own. "I brought food," Eli said, setting the box on the ground. "And medicine. It's not much, but it might help." The girl looked at him suspiciously. "Why?" "Because you need it," he said simply. "You and your mother." For a moment, the girl didn't move. Then she knelt beside the box, opened it, and stared at the warm food inside. Tears welled up in her large eyes. She whispered something Eli didn't understand, maybe a thank you in her language, and began feeding her mother slowly. Eli sat down a few steps away. The storm roared above, lightning painting the sky purple. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated. "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated. "Beautiful name." Lyra looked up. "Humans don't like us," she said bitterly. "You call us invaders. My mother worked in your mines before the collapse. When humans left the site, they forgot us here." Eli felt a sting of guilt. He had heard the stories about alien workers abandoned during the evacuation years ago, but no one ever said any had survived. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Lyra shook her head. Sorry doesn't stop her from dying. She looked at her mother again, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I tried to find medicine, but your people, your guards, they shoot on sight." Eli looked at the woman's condition. She was burning with fever, her skin losing its glow. "I can help," he said after a moment. "There's a doctor in the colony." "I'll get medicine for her." "Real medicine?" Lyra's eyes widened. "No. They'll arrest you if they know you helped us." Eli gave a small smile. "Then they won't know." For the first time, Lyra looked at him not as a human, but as a friend. He stood up. "I'll be back tomorrow night." "Keep her warm." Lyra nodded slowly. "If you come back, bring light," she said. "Our power cells are dead." "I will," Eli promised before turning back toward the colony lights in the distance. When he reached the gate, the guards were scanning the area with drones. He slipped in quietly, heart pounding. He couldn't stop thinking about Lyra and her mother. They were living like ghosts in the ruins, alone, starving, and hunted. That night, Eli didn't sleep. He searched the colony black market, trading his own tools for stolen medicine. By dawn, he had what he needed: fever drugs, energy cells, and nutrient packs. But as he packed them, a voice came from his door. "Eli Ward," said a stern man in a black security uniform. "We have some questions about your late-night movements." Eli froze. The medicine box lay open beside him, glowing faintly in the light. The man's eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't happen to be helping one of those alien strays, would you?" Eli's mind raced. One wrong answer and Lyra would be caught. He forced a smile. "Of course not," he lied. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He was already in too deep, and tomorrow night, he was going back into the wasteland. The next day passed slowly on Varine 4. The silver domes of the colony glimmered under the pale sun, but Eli Ward barely noticed them. His mind was filled with one image: Lyra's mother lying weak and dying in the dark wasteland. He had promised to bring help. And promises were something Eli never broke. But now the colony's security division had their eyes on him. The officer who visited him last night, Captain Draven Holt, was not someone to underestimate. Holt had a sharp, cold smile and a reputation for hunting alien survivors without mercy. Still, Eli couldn't stop. When the night came, he packed a small metal case with medicine, power cells, and nutrient gels. He covered them with old machine parts to make it look like repair supplies. Then he slipped out of his quarters quietly and made his way toward the outer gates. The guard scanned him with handheld devices. Repair job? One asked lazily. Eli nodded. Yeah, outer dome generator. The guard shrugged. You're crazy going out there tonight. Radiation winds are rising. Yeah, Eli muttered. So am I. He passed through the gate just before it locked for the night, then disappeared into the glowing fog. The wasteland stretched endlessly before him, filled with broken towers and cracked pipes that hissed steam. His boots sank into the soft dust with every step. Finally, he saw it, a faint blue flicker deep in the dark. A signal. Lyra had lit a small lantern for him. When he reached her shelter, she rushed out to meet him. Her silver eyes widened when she saw the case. You came back, she whispered, half in disbelief. I said I would, Eli replied, smiling. He stepped inside the cave-like structure, built from old ship panels and cloth. Lyra's mother lay on a makeshift bed, her breathing shallow. Eli knelt beside her, opening the medicine pack. He injected the fever serum carefully into her arm, then handed Lyra a small device. Energy cell, he explained. This will power your heater and lights for a few days. Lyra stared at him like he was some kind of miracle. You risked everything for us, she said quietly. Eli shrugged. You risked everything to keep your mother alive. I guess we're both stupid. Lyra gave a small smile. Maybe brave, she said softly. Hours passed as Eli checked her mother's pulse, helped clean her wounds, and watched the medicine start to work. Slowly, the woman's breathing grew calmer. The silver glow returned faintly to her skin. She's stabilizing, Eli said, relief in his voice. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. You saved her, but Eli shook his head. Not yet. She needs more medicine. This was just the start. Before Lyra could reply, a distant whirring sound echoed outside the cave. Both of them froze. Eli turned off the light immediately. Through the crack in the wall, he saw 3 drones scanning the area, their red lights cutting through the fog. Security patrol, Lyra whispered, fear flooding her face. Eli's pulse raced. They must have tracked my signal. The drones moved closer, scanning the ground. One of them stopped near the entrance. Eli held his breath. The drone's lens glowed red, humming as it detected heat signatures. Then, suddenly, Lyra grabbed a rock and threw it far across the wasteland. It hit a metal pipe with a loud clang. The drones turned instantly, chasing the sound. Eli exhaled. Nice aim, he whispered. Lyra smiled nervously. You humans aren't the only ones who can survive. When the danger passed, they sat together in silence. The wind howled through the broken walls. Eli looked at her. You can't stay here forever, he said. They'll find you eventually. Lyra's voice cracked. We have nowhere else to go. Your people hate us, not all of us, Eli said quietly. There's a way. I have a friend, an engineer, who can forge identity chips. If I can get you fake IDs, you could live inside the colony, hidden. Lyra stared at him, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time. You would do that for us? Yes, he said simply. But it won't be easy. I'll need credits and time. A lot of both. Lyra reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was cool, almost metallic, but the touch felt human. Thank you, Eli, she whispered. He smiled softly. Just promise me one thing. What? When your mother gets better. Don't steal from my shop again, Lyra laughed, a real gentle laugh. It was the first time he'd heard it. Deal, she said. As dawn broke over the dusty horizon, Eli prepared to leave. He looked back one last time, the alien girl kneeling beside her recovering mother, a small light flickering beside them. He knew then that he wasn't helping strangers anymore. He was protecting a secret worth dying for. For the first time in weeks, Lyra's mother slept peacefully through the night. The fever was fading, her breathing slow but steady. Lyra sat beside her, watching the faint glow return to her mother's silver skin. The medicine had worked. Eli Ward had saved her. But inside the human colony, things were changing. Captain Draven Holt, head of security, stood in his office surrounded by holographic screens. On them were images of the wastelands, heat signals, drone footage, and movement patterns. His eyes narrowed when one of the readings caught his attention. A single human life sign had left the colony gates 3 nights in a row and returned just before dawn. Eli Ward. Holt muttered. What are you hiding? He tapped the screen. Send out more drones and double patrols near Sector 9. Meanwhile, Eli moved through the crowded market square, pretending everything was normal. The smell of fried food and oil filled the air. People shouted prices, traders haggled, and miners laughed over cheap drinks. But Eli's mind was somewhere else, deep in the wasteland with Lyra. He had one goal now: find a way to get her and her mother into the colony safely. That night, he visited Jonas Reeve, an old friend who worked in the colony's data hub. Jonas was a tech genius and a rule breaker. His room was filled with blinking lights, wires, and stacks of illegal chips. Fake ID chips. Jonas raised an eyebrow when Eli explained, "You're insane. The scanners would burn you alive if they catch it." "I just need 2, Eli said. "4 refugees." Jonas stared at him for a long time, then sighed. "Refugees, huh? Or are you hiding aliens again?" Eli's eyes widened. "How do you—" "Relax," Jonas said, smirking. "You've always had that hero look. I knew it was something like that. Can you do it?" Eli asked. Jonas rubbed his chin. "I can, but it'll take a few days. And if Holt finds out we're both dead, then we don't let him find out." Jonas nodded slowly. "All right. Bring me bioscans for both of them. No names, just data. I'll handle the rest." Eli smiled in relief. "You're saving lives, Jonas." Jonas laughed dryly. "Yeah, well, let's hope they're worth it." 3 nights later, Eli returned to the wasteland carrying a small scanner and more supplies. The wind had grown colder, and strange glowing creatures moved in the fog like ghosts. When Lyra saw him, she ran forward and hugged him tightly. "You came back," she said, her voice full of emotion. "I said I would," Eli replied, smiling. "Your mother?" "She's better. Weak, but alive." He looked around the small shelter. The power cells were still running, casting soft blue light across the walls. He handed Lyra the scanner. "I need to scan you and your mother. For identification." Lyra hesitated. "What for?" "So I can get you inside," Eli said. "New IDs, fake records. You'll be safe." Lyra's eyes filled with hope and fear. "You'd risk everything?" "I already am," Eli said quietly. "If they catch me, I'm finished. But I can't just leave you out here to die." She nodded and let him scan their hands and faces. The machine beeped softly. "Done," Eli said. "I'll come back in 2 nights." But as he turned to leave, Lyra grabbed his arm. "Eli, be careful. You're being watched," he frowned. "What do you mean?" "I saw drones last night," she said. "They were flying closer. I think they're looking for us." "For you." Eli's stomach tightened. "Then I need to move fast." He hurried back toward the colony. But halfway through the fog, he saw something that made him stop cold. A red drone light hovering just above the rocks, scanning the ground. He dropped low behind a wrecked ship hull. The drone's lens turned, humming softly. Then a voice echoed through the night. "Unauthorized presence detected. Identify yourself." Eli held his breath, not moving a muscle. The drone hovered closer, scanning. Suddenly, a rock hit the drone from behind. It sparked and spun, crashing into the ground. Eli turned. Lyra stood there, panting, holding another rock. "Go!" she shouted. "Run!" Eli ran as fast as he could toward the colony. Behind him, the broken drone hissed, sending a signal back to headquarters before exploding in a flash of red light. Inside the colony, alarms began to sound. Captain Holt's screens flickered to life. "Drone 27 lost contact," an officer reported. "Last signal, Sector 9, West Ridge." Holt's cold smile returned. "So, that's where our rat has been hiding." He turned to his team. "Prepare a hunting unit. We're going out there ourselves." At the same time, Eli reached his quarters, out of breath and covered in dust. He looked back through his window at the wasteland. Somewhere out there, Lyra and her mother were waiting, unaware that the humans were coming. He clenched his fists. "No," he whispered. "I won't let them find you." But deep inside, he knew the truth. The hunt had already begun. 2 days later, Eli Ward felt the walls of the colony closing in. Everywhere he went, the tension was thick. Security drones buzzed over the streets, and Captain Draven Holt's face flashed across public screens, announcing new orders. "Unauthorized contact with alien life forms is punishable by exile," Holt declared. "Report any suspicious activity immediately." Eli clenched his jaw. He knew that message was for him. He kept walking, pretending not to care, but every camera lens felt like an eye watching his every move. He had to act fast. That evening, Eli met Jonas Reeve again inside the dim glow of the data hub. The smell of burnt circuits filled the air. Jonas was hunched over his workstation, his fingers flying across the holographic keyboard. "I got what you wanted," Jonas said quietly, handing over a small case. Inside were 2 identity chips, each one forged with human DNA codes. These will work with the gate scanners for maybe a week before they're detected. You better move them fast. Eli smiled weakly. You're a lifesaver. Jonas frowned. Don't thank me yet. The security network's been scanning for alien biosignatures since last night. Holt's obsessed. He knows someone's hiding something. Eli's chest tightened. He doesn't know it's me. Jonas hesitated. Eli, promise me one thing. If this goes bad, run. Don't try to be the hero. Eli gave a small nod, though both of them knew he wouldn't keep that promise. As the colony lights dimmed for the night, Eli slipped out again. The guards were distracted by the storm that was brewing outside. He moved through the shadows, his coat flapping in the wind, and passed through the maintenance tunnels that led to the wasteland. The air outside was sharp with cold. Lightning cracked across the distant hills. When he reached Lyra's shelter, she was already waiting. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the stormlight. You came, she said softly. I brought your IDs, Eli said, handing her the chips. Once your mother can walk, you'll use these to get inside. Sector 4 has abandoned housing near the lower docks. No one will notice you there. Lyra held the chips as if they were priceless gems. You did all this for us, Eli smiled. You deserve a chance to live. That's all. But before Lyra could respond, a faint mechanical buzz echoed outside the cave. Eli's blood ran cold. Drones, Lyra's eyes widened. They found us, Eli peeked out. Through the fog, he saw glowing red lights. 5 security drones flying in formation. Behind them, a large armored vehicle was rolling closer. The human insignia on it glowed bright white. Holt was here. Go, Eli hissed. Take your mother and run through the tunnels. Lyra hesitated, fear and confusion in her eyes. What about you? I'll draw them away, move. Lyra nodded, then lifted her mother carefully and disappeared into the tunnels behind the cave. Eli turned and grabbed a metal pipe, his heart pounding. He waited until the first drone hovered at the entrance, then smashed it hard. The machine exploded in a burst of sparks. Immediately, the others fired. Red plasma bolts ripped through the air. Eli ducked behind a wall, the heat searing his face. He threw a rock at one of the broken fuel tanks nearby. Boom! The explosion lit up the night sky. For a moment, the drones backed off. But the armored vehicle stopped only a few meters away, and Holt himself stepped out, his black armor gleaming in the stormlight. Well, Holt said, smiling coldly. I was wondering how long it would take to catch you, Ward. Eli glared at him. You don't understand, she's just a girl. They're not dangerous, Holt laughed. They're contaminants. Do you know what happens when you hide their kind? You risk every human life in this colony. They're not your enemy, Eli shouted. They're survivors. Holt's face hardened. And you're a traitor. He raised his weapon. Where are they? Eli didn't answer. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the storm. Then Holt gave a small nod to his soldiers. Search the area. Bring me the girl. As they moved out, Holt stepped closer to Eli. You think you're saving her, but you're not. You're signing her death sentence and yours. Eli's fists clenched. If I have to die to save them, so be it. Holt's eyes flashed with cold amusement. You just might get your wish. Hours later, as dawn broke, Eli stumbled back toward the colony, bruised and bleeding. He had escaped, but just barely. Behind him, smoke rose from the wasteland where the drones had exploded. Holt's soldiers were still searching, but Lyra and her mother were gone. He didn't know where. He only knew one thing now. Someone had betrayed him, because Holt had found them too fast. The wasteland burned behind him like a dying sun. Eli Ward stumbled through the fog, his jacket torn, his hands blackened with dust and ash. Every breath felt heavy, filled with smoke and regret. He'd escaped Captain Holt's patrol, barely, but Lyra and her mother were gone. The tunnels stretched for miles beneath the colony ruins. They could be anywhere. Or nowhere. Still, he kept walking. He had to find them. He had promised. By mid-morning, Eli reached the edge of Old Sector 12, an abandoned mining field long sealed off by the colony. Massive cranes lay rusting in the dust and half-collapsed tunnels disappeared into the dark. He heard a faint sound, metal scraping against stone. He froze, hand on his sidearm. Then from behind a broken generator, a weak voice called, Eli? He turned. There she was, Lyra, covered in dust, eyes tired but alive. Her mother lay beside her, breathing weakly. Relief washed over him so hard it almost hurt. "You're safe," he breathed. Lyra shook her head. "No, they're still searching. We can't go back to the cave." "They know." Eli nodded, kneeling beside her mother. The fever had returned. Her glow had faded again. "She needs better care," he said. "We can't keep hiding like this," Lyra's voice cracked. "Where can we go?" "The colony hunts us, the wasteland kills us." Eli looked toward the horizon. The storm clouds were clearing, revealing a faint silver structure in the distance, a forgotten supply dome, half buried in sand. "There," he said. "It's old, but maybe still powered. It could hide you long enough for me to fix things." Lyra followed his gaze. "A last refuge," she whispered. Together they carried her mother toward the dome. The wind howled around them, lifting dust like ghostly hands. Inside the structure, darkness ruled. Eli found an emergency panel and reconnected the wires with shaking hands. After a few sparks, the lights flickered on weakly. The air was stale but breathable. Old human machines lined the walls, oxygen processors, water tanks, storage crates. It was a forgotten outpost, one of many left behind after the Great Collapse. Lyra laid her mother down on a soft blanket Eli had brought. "She's so cold," she said quietly. Eli checked the generator. "I'll get the heat running, and I'll find something for her to eat." He worked for hours, fixing old circuits and patching pipes. Every time he looked over, he saw Lyra sitting beside her mother, whispering softly in her alien tongue. The sound was beautiful, sad and soft like music from a dying world. Finally, the heater came alive with a faint hum. Warmth filled the room. Lyra looked up and smiled faintly. "You never give up, do you?" Eli smiled back. "Humans are stubborn. So are we," she said, touching his hand. Her fingers were cold, but her eyes were full of warmth. "Thank you." He looked into her glowing eyes, realizing something he hadn't before. He wasn't helping her out of pity anymore. He cared, deeply. As night fell, Eli stepped outside for air. The wasteland was quiet now, the storm gone. The colony lights shimmered far away like a cruel reminder of another world, a world that would never accept Lyra. He pulled out his communicator. A message flashed on the screen from Jonas Reeve. "They know. Someone tipped them off. Holt's team traced your fake chips. Don't come back, hide." Eli's stomach dropped. Betrayal confirmed. Someone from the colony had exposed him. Before he could respond, he heard a faint mechanical whine in the distance. His heart stopped. Drones again. He ran back inside the dome. "Lyra, we have to move." "They're coming." Her eyes widened. "How?" "They can't track this place." "They trace the chips," Eli said grimly. "They know everything." Lyra's mother stirred weakly. "Go," she whispered in a fragile voice. "Leave me. Save my daughter." Lyra shook her head violently. "No, I won't leave you." Eli knelt beside them. "We all go together." He grabbed an old shock rifle from a storage rack. The metal was cold and heavy in his hands. "I'll hold them off while you move through the back exit tunnel. There's an escape hatch. It leads toward the southern canyons." Lyra looked at him in fear. "If you fight them, they'll kill you." Eli smiled sadly. "Maybe, but I won't let them hurt you." "Not again." Before she could protest, the dome's walls shook with a deep rumble. Red lights flashed. Holt's voice echoed through a speaker drone hovering outside. "Eli Ward, this is your final warning. Surrender the aliens or we will burn the dome." Lyra's hands trembled. "They'll destroy everything." Eli looked at her, his voice firm. "Then we make them think we're already gone." He pulled a thermal grenade from the rack and placed it near the front door. "This will make it look like we escaped. Go now." Lyra hesitated, then whispered, "Promise me you'll follow." "I promise," he said softly. She took her mother's arm and disappeared into the tunnel, glancing back one last time. Their eyes met, hers full of tears, his full of determination. Eli took a deep breath, hand on the trigger. Outside, he could hear Holt's soldiers moving closer. "Come on," he whispered to himself. "Let's finish this." He pulled the pin, a flash of light filled the night, and then silence. The explosion shook the wasteland. Fire and dust rose high into the violet sky, lighting the horizon for miles. From a distance, it looked like the dome had been destroyed completely. Captain Draven Holt watched from behind his armored vehicle, a cruel smile spreading across his face. No one survives that, he said coldly. But he was wrong. Deep beneath the sand, inside an old maintenance tunnel, Eli Ward lay half-conscious, his ears ringing from the blast. The explosion had collapsed part of the dome, but it had also sealed off the tunnel just in time, shielding them from the flames. He groaned and sat up. The air was thick with dust. Beside him, Lyra was trying to help her mother breathe, using the oxygen pack he had given her earlier. "You're alive," Eli whispered, coughing. Lyra looked at him, tears shining in her silver eyes. "You lied to me," she said softly. "You said you'd follow right behind us." Eli managed a weak smile. "I did, didn't I?" She shook her head, but her lips curved into a tiny, trembling smile. "You crazy human." They sat there for a moment, surrounded by silence. The faint hum of the explosion faded into the wind. But they knew it wouldn't last. Holt would send search teams soon. Eli looked around. "We have to keep moving. These tunnels go all the way to the southern canyons. If we can reach the cliffs, we can disappear completely." Lyra nodded, helping her mother stand. The three of them began their slow journey through the dark, their footsteps echoing softly against the metal floor. Hours passed. The tunnel narrowed, forcing them to crawl at some points. Lyra's mother was weak, her glow fading again. Eli carried her for most of the way, his arms trembling with exhaustion but never giving up. Finally, they emerged into open air. The southern canyon stretched before them, a vast land of red stone and hidden caves. Above, the twin moons shone like pale eyes watching them. Eli helped them down a slope and into the shadow of a large rock arch. "We'll rest here," he said. Lyra looked at him, concern etched across her face. "You're hurt." He glanced at his side, blood soaked through his shirt from a cut caused by the explosion. "It's fine," he lied. "I've had worse." She knelt beside him, cleaning the wound with a cloth. "You shouldn't have come for us," she whispered. "You risked everything, your life, your home." Eli looked at her gently. Maybe that home wasn't mine anymore. Not if it meant letting people die because of what they are. Her eyes softened. "You're not like the others." "Neither are you," he said quietly. "You have more humanity than most humans I've met." They sat in silence for a long time. Then slowly, Lyra's mother stirred. She reached out and touched Eli's hand weakly. "Human," she whispered, her voice fragile as wind. "Why help us?" "You owe us nothing." Eli swallowed hard. "Because someone has to care. Because if we stop helping each other, what's the point of surviving at all?" Her lips trembled in a faint smile. "Your heart shines bright. Don't let them take that from you." Then her eyes closed again, peaceful, calm. Lyra leaned forward, panic in her voice. "Mother?" Eli touched her shoulder gently. "She's just resting," but both of them knew. She wasn't going to wake up. Tears streamed silently down Lyra's face as she buried her mother's body beneath the red dust. She placed a small silver pendant, a symbol of her people, on the grave. The desert wind carried her quiet sobs away. When it was over, she turned to Eli, her voice trembling. "She wanted me to live. To keep moving," Eli nodded. "And you will. There's a small research outpost beyond these canyons. It's unmanned, has food, water, and shelter. You can stay there until the colony leaves orbit." Lyra looked at him. "You say it like you're not coming." Eli smiled sadly. "If I go back, I can draw them away. Holt will think you're dead. It's the only way to keep you safe." She stepped closer, shaking her head. "No, I can't lose you too." He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You won't. You'll live, for both of us." Lyra's voice broke. "Eli," he handed her a small beacon. "When it's safe, use this. It'll send a signal to the outer colonies. Someone will find you. Promise me you'll use it, I promise," she whispered. He gave one last smile, then turned toward the horizon. The rising sun painted his figure in gold and red. He looked back one last time, and she saw something in his eyes. Peace. Then he walked away, back toward the wasteland, back toward the colony that would never forgive him. Hours later, in the colony's command room, Captain Holt stood before the screens, his face pale. Drone footage showed Eli walking into the storm unarmed, surrendering himself. "Ward," Holt muttered. "You fool." But even he couldn't hide the flicker of respect in his eyes. Far beyond the colony under the canyon stars, Lyra held the beacon close. She looked up at the sky, tears glistening like silver. "Goodbye, Eli," she whispered. "Your humanity saved more than one life today." The beacon light blinked once, soft, steady, like a heartbeat in the dark. and somewhere in the endless night of Varine 4, the legend of the human who saved an alien child began.